So I've been looking for a project car for a while now, and I was looking at possibly Fiesta ST, possibly a Golf GTI, maybe even a Golf R. But when I came across this, I could literally not let it slip through my fingers. And I've never taken a project build so big like this before, so I'm really excited to bring you guys along on the journey with me to get this rebuilt. So I'm sure you guys are dying to find out how much I paid for this car. So stay tuned to the end of the video and I will tell you exactly how much I got it for. So without further ado, let me show you what I've bought. So as you guys have seen, this is a crash damaged 2014 M135i F21 shape, because it is the coupe. I believe the F20 shape is the 4-door, F21 is the 2-door. I think they've changed the mags, changed the intake, not too sure about the exhaust just as yet. Can't check the intercooler because there is no intercooler. But yeah, other than that, everything sort of looks stock standard. They have put the carbon fiber little trim up here with the aerial carbon fiber trim up there. But yeah, besides that, the car seems pretty standard all round. So when I saw the car on auction, I sort of knew exactly what I was in for. They take photos all around the car, they show you the engine bay, all the damaged pieces, the interior, if any airbags have gone off, and then they give you a bit of a description of the mileage, whether it's got keys, things like that. So with that being said, I could possibly have a good overall picture of exactly what I was in for. So when we went to go fetch the car, the forklift came, lifted the car, put it straight on the flatbed, and we were on the way home. So here's a couple of photos of us taking collection of my crash damaged M135i and them loading it onto the trailer. So a couple things to mention: the car did not come with any keys, both windows were open halfway, which had to be covered with plastic, battery was completely flat, and because the front suspension was cracked and all broken, that made it very difficult to move the car. Then once I arrived home, there might have been just one small thing that I had forgotten.
That I had bought an automatic.
So only once we arrived home that I looked at my dad looked at me, and I think the realization sunk into both of us that we had an automatic with no keys, battery dead, and very limited steering. So in order for us to get the car moving again, I had to lift the car up, get underneath, remove the whole bottom underneath panel, get to the gearbox, and there's this tiny little screw, as you can see in this video, which enables the automatic gearbox to be stuck into neutral. So once that was done, we could bring the car down, park it into the driveway, and get ready to start dismantling and actually having an overall view of exactly what I had bought. So don't get me wrong, I bought this car knowing it had all of these issues, while majority of the issues only what you can see in photos and things like that. But all around the car does look pretty good, pretty clean. I think with a nice good detailing and a nice deep clean, I really think we can bring it back to its former glory. Of course, the big hit is in the front, but let's not talk about the bad things first. We'll get to the bad things later. Let's start off with the good things. The interior is quite clean. The seats, I love this red interior. Only the curtain airbags have gone off. So curtain airbag on driver's side, then curtain airbag on passenger side. But luckily the steering airbag hasn't gone off, neither has the dash airbag. So yeah, other than that, this car looks pretty clean. It does have quite a lot of very nice features: heated seats, 8-speed automatic gearbox, pedal shift as well, push start and stop.
And of course, the infamous N55 turbocharged 6-cylinder 3-litre petrol engine, throwing out a whopping 315 brake horsepower, with the MST performance intake giving us an extra 10 to 15 brake horsepower, and our 18-inch mags.
And now onto the not so good things. No headlight, no driver's headlight, bonnet is in pieces, no front bumper.
One very damaged oil radiator.
Yeah, this tire's also been scuffed quite a bit there, so that's going to be needing changing. Oh, suspension is gone, crash bar's broken, radiator is in pieces, fender is out,
An intercooler that is nowhere to be seen.
a bit of scratching on the rear bumper, tire is horrific, suspension here is also gone, so that suspension is going to need changing. So you've seen all the good things and, well, all the not so good things, but I definitely see the potential in this car. I can't wait to start stripping the front, getting everything off, seeing exactly what we're dealing with, getting the parts back in, and start assembling it all together. But first things first, we need a game plan. So I think, of course, the main thing here will be the radiator pack, front crash bar. If we can straighten this up, pop the front crash bar back in with the radiator, get two new fenders, get a new bonnet. I think we might need to straighten these ones up a little bit as well. I think these are xenon lights, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the LED xenon lights, so we'll need to get a pair of those for either side. Get the front bumper, get the spotlights that fit at the bottom, grille. I think we'll be upgrading the intercooler as well, so I'm not going to stress about this too much now. I'm going to order in a nice performance one so we can pop that on there. But yeah, other than that, we can get this sorted. From this side, we'll definitely need to get a set of different mags, because yeah, this one is I think seen better days. But yeah, besides that, we will be getting practically the whole front end sorted. But apart from that, the car's actually not too bad. So in terms of mods, we've already got the MST performance intake in there. Like I said, I do want to redo the intercooler as well. I'm happy with the brakes. I haven't heard the exhaust just as yet, but I'm sure we'll be upgrading that, and definitely a stage 2.
So with the stage 2, possibly changing the wing mirror covers as well to the carbon fiber ones, so it can match the panels at the back. And then on this side, just getting rid of all this external plastic that came with the car, because of course the windows were open.
So now that everything is all set and done, we have taken a look from the outside to see exactly what sort of body panels we would need. I can't wait to start stripping it down to see exactly what we would need mechanically as well. And hopefully we can get a start. But in order for us to get a start, we would need a set of keys. So stay tuned to see exactly how we get that done. But for now, let's have one last look at it before we start stripping it. In terms of color wise, I don't think I could have done anything else but attempt to try and wrap it. So in the comments below, let me know what color you would want me to wrap this car. I've got a couple of colors in mind, but maybe there's an inspiration out there that could just, you know, slap bang. That's exactly the color we want to go with. I'm gonna try stick with the carbon fiber look as well, with the extra little trims, possibly get carbon fiber wing mirror covers, so that matches the back. possibly a diffuser as well in carbon fiber, but definitely will be wrapping the car. So in the comments below, let me know exactly what color you would want me to wrap this car. So I picked up this M135i for £4,500. Yes, £4,500 for an M135 I think is ridiculously cheap. Yes, of course it does have the smash in the front, but besides that, you're getting the rest of the M135, something that we can just fix. It is categorized as Cat S, which is structural but repairable, so we can definitely get it back on the road. But for £4,500, I think that is an absolute steal. So I will be giving you guys an exact breakdown of how much it costed, and then every time we buy something new, whether that be parts, exterior, interior, mechanical, electrical, anything like that, I'll be adding it to that list, and let's see how much it will cost us in the end. So if you guys are as excited as I am to get this M135i rebuilt, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments below what color you would want me to wrap this car. But for now, take it easy, peace out, and I'll see you in the next video. You guys are excited. Ooh. My M135 needs keys, and in order for me to get them keys, I need a specialist to come out and make it for me. Now, it's not just as a simple process of cutting the key, coding it to the car, and turning on the ignition and starting. With these newer cars, it's a lot more difficult because we need to get the ECU out, we need to get another module by the passenger footwell, and in order for us to get that, we need to start stripping it.
So I've bought a crash damaged M135i with no keys. Yes, I've known from the beginning that there was no spare key, no original key, but we need to get that sorted today.
So in order for us to get to the ECU, which is placed down there, we need to take out this intake manifold, remove all of these plugs, wires, screws and everything like that. And then once we'll be able to take this out, flip it over and then dismantle the ECU.
Alright, so first things first, I am looking for all the electrical plugs, just trying to get them loose or unplugged, and then trying to see exactly what I'm dealing with in terms of screw wires. I know there's a couple of 8mm and 10mm bolts that need to be unscrewed, and then of course your occasional plastic clips that do hide away deep in there. So just trying to see exactly what we are dealing with to get it all done. So once the bolts have all been loosened, it is time to look for all the sensors that come attached to it. So now that it's nice and loose, I can start wiggling it around, seeing exactly what needs to be undone as well, with of course trying to not damage anything in the process. And there we have it, guys, just loosening up a couple of sensors, but there is the air intake manifold with the ECU on the bottom, just loosening up a couple of bolts around it so we can get it off the manifold and yeah, plug it in. So this is how the engine bay looks. Just a quick word of advice: if you can cover all of those holes with cloths, just so that no unwanted screws or anything goes into the engine itself.
So now in order for us to get a key for the car, I need to call Adam from Auto ECU. Now I'll let him explain later on in the video exactly what they do, but the best thing is they come to you.
Hello there, it's Adam from Auto ECU. Today we're here to make a key for Brian's BMW. To do anything at all, we need the ignition on, and we can only do that by making a key. In this workshop here, we're mobile, we come to the customers, we do all sorts of programming and replacements and repairs, taking out 2 modules of the car, and today we'll attempt to make the key for the car. So hopefully this goes well.
The car won't start just as yet because of course of the whole front radiator being smashed in and all of that, but for the time being, what we're going to try to do is at least just get past the lock stages in the car. We still need to close the windows because, as you can see, it's starting to rain here. So
yeah, we've taken out the FEM unit, short for front electrical module, and in order for us to make a key and a spare key, we'll need this module and the ECU all together.
So far we've backed up the original software and we've modified it to run a version which we can modify. And we're currently in the process of changing the software, and then we'll restore it back to normal, restore the coding on there, put it back in the car, and then continue with getting the security off the ECU.
So here we've plugged the ECU back inside with the FEM module as well, plugged in the OBD readers and cracking on with getting that security number.
Alright, so update on the car. We've got all the data we need. We've modified the FEM unit, which is the module that sits under the passenger footwell. We've got the immobilizer security number, which should have came off the key, but with the key being lost, we only have an option to read it from the ECU.
Yeah.
So we've got that through specialized tools as well. Now the only thing left to do is to program the key itself. This is a part where people can be caught out as well. There are 3 different types of key frequencies we can have. It's 315 megahertz, 434 megahertz, and 868 megahertz. But from experience, I could tell you in the UK, we're only limited to 434 and 868. 315 is generally used in the US market, so you have a 50% chance of if we're going to guess, or we can use a specialized equipment to tell us straight away what we should do. We know it will work when the key is programmed, the central locking is working, because that's what the frequency does. You press a button on the remote, it sends out a small radio frequency to the car. As long as the radio frequency is correct, it will pick it up and respond with the doors unlocking, with the boot opening, and so on and so forth. In this case, it's also used for the keyless function, as this is a BMW M135i. And you can keep the key in your pocket, push the start button, drive away. If we get the frequency wrong, we'll have to keep it up to the steering column and start the car. Yeah, let's get to it.
So now that we've got the security number, we are just configuring that to the key itself, so everything can link up together. Now once that has linked up, it is time to put the key to the ignition to set it up to configure with the car itself. Oh, hey, and we finally have ignition. Now that the ignition is on, it is time to code the original key to the spare key as well. Once the spare key has been joined, it is time to officially cut a key for the car in case the key battery dies. Now with Adam, this was quite a simple process. It was just checking which numbers the key gave, popping the numbers into the machine with a new plain key and letting the machine cut it for us.
So guys, in the process of all of that, we've also removed all 4 tires on the car, just so that when the suspension does arrive, it's a lot easier access for us to change everything. We are going to be changing it all in the front, but also on the rear left hand side we'll be changing a couple of control arms this side, just so that everything is all good to rock and roll, so that we'll also be able to move the car up and down, and then pop the tires back on, and then we can start moving the car freely.
Guys, so Adam from Auto ECU has just left, and check out these keys. So these are not the ordinary keys that you would get with the M135. These are your M Sport keys with a nice flush finish, key cut, and BMW logo stuck on. Wow. So all of Adam's information is in the description below this video. Give him a call if you need anything to be sorted key wise. But let's go. So now that the keys have been cut and coded to the car, it is time for us to officially start tackling this front, starting off with this very disintegrated headlight. Next, it was to tackle the front crash bar. Now these were a couple of bolts on the top and on the crash bar itself. This was a bit difficult because of the accident. The bolts had shifted quite a bit, so they were a lot tighter than normal, but in the end we did come right. So here we finally take off the front crash bar to see exactly how bad the damage is behind it. definitely won't be using that again. As you guys can see here, it is all nice and bent up. So now it was time for us to assess the front radiator pack. This consists of the aircon and the coolant radiator. The plastics were all damaged and these aircons are no good to us. Front crash bar as well is bent a bit to the right, so we'll need to get that straightened up. But all in all, things are looking good so far, nothing too bad to the engine, so let's continue stripping. Next was to strip down these front crash bar holders. It was just 3 bolts on either side. As you guys can see, these have been bent a bit to the left, so we'll definitely need to remove them and replace them, assess the damage and go from there. Now my old man couldn't resist getting his hands dirty and helping out. So as we continued stripping down the top of the crash bar, we just needed to remove the cable for the bonnet as well, as you can see him doing there, and just a couple of water pipes coming from the coolant bottle through to the radiator. So this is how we are looking so far, nothing unexpected, so very happy with how we're going.
Guys, so we officially have keys. I'm going to continue stripping the front. If you've liked what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Catch me same time, same place next week to see if we can get a start. Peace out. So today's the day. We'll see if we can get a start. Now, I'm not expecting for it to run for long because we don't know how much oil it has in the engine itself and how much oil it has in the gearbox. But if it can run for at least 5 to 10 seconds just to know that the engine is all good, I will be content. So catch me back as we continue to strip the front.
So in the previous video, we started off by stripping the complete front, starting off with the damaged headlight and then moving on to the front crash bar. So as you can see here, this is what it looks like so far. We are getting a better look at the 2 radiators, the aircon radiator and the coolant radiator, and this also gives us a nice view of the front crash bar holders, one on each side, that have been slightly bent to the right, so we'll definitely have to get those changed and also straightened up. Now, in order for us to get this removed, there are 3 bolts on either side and then a couple of bolts on top where the headlight bracket is. Now, because everything has been squished up together, we do have to wangle a couple of the components to try and see if we can get them removed. So while I cracked on the other side, my dad removed the water bottle. I was hoping this would have been salvageable, but because one of the main housings cracked, we'll definitely have to get that replaced. But the water pipe looked quite good, so we can definitely make use of that. So here comes out one side of the front holders of the crash bar. Now this also has the headlight bracket on top, and this keeps everything in place altogether. Definitely holds up the radiators as well. Once that had been removed, we had a lot more space to start removing a couple of the water and air pipes as well, so that was also quite good to see exactly what we could reuse and what we had to replace. I definitely believe this side had the greater impact than the other side because it was a lot more difficult to remove, being that it was so bent towards the left. So like I said earlier, it was one of those situations where we just had to wiggle our way out of it, try bending it back and forth, as of course we will be replacing majority of the damaged items that are there. So it was just to get a better look of how things are going, what was damaged and what needed to be replaced. So with the help of a crowbar, it was just to try straighten things up a little bit better than what it was, just so that we could remove the coolant radiator, which of course has to be replaced, and next was onto the fan. This is how things are looking right now. Everything around the engine seems to be damaged, but the engine itself seems pretty good. So if we can just get the front crush bar back in, straighten those up, then we should be all good to rock and roll. Now this aircon radiator did not go without putting up a fight. Because some of the pipes were also bent, it was just a back and forth process that we took our time just to make sure we didn't damage anything else. Now once we finally got this aircon radiator out, we could have a better look of exactly how the engine is looking. Everything seemed to be in place. Of course the bolt had snapped as well, so that will definitely be needing replacing, but majority of the pipes, wires, everything seemed to be in order. So yeah, so far so good.
So a quick update on the car. We've completely stripped the whole of the front end, taken all the radiators out, the intake, complete front crash panel as well, but it's not looking good. One of the oil pipes have cracked, so they've actually completely broken off. So it doesn't look like we'll be able to start the engine just as yet, but we're trying to make a plan. So let me show you what we're doing. So there's all the radiators. Here's the, well, what's left of the front crash panel. We have the fan, which has still got the module here, which we'll try to salvage, but we'll see how far we get with that. The issue is coming in here with this one. So one of the oil pipes come in here, and this one has cracked off, which is leading to the gearbox oil. So one is a lead, one is a return. So what we've tried to do here is just make a quick little bypass so oil can come and go back, just so that we can try to see if the engine starts, turns, kicks, maybe run it for a couple of seconds, and then yeah, get this sort of replaced, and then yeah, then we should be good to let it run for a little bit. We don't necessarily need water now because we won't be running it for that long. Start running it to temperature, then of course you need the water to cool it and all of that. But yeah, we're just checking if all the pipes are nice and clean, so it doesn't go into the turbo, which is sitting down there, and the intakes. So yeah, just checking if all the pipes are clean, making sure everything is nice and clean, and then yeah, hopefully we can get a first start up, a first kick. What do you think, Dad? Is it going to start nicely?
I'm going to start that. I'm going to kick some ass.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear this exhaust. Well, I'll give you guys an update. Let's crack on. So this is our main issue. Pipe sort of cracked there, as you can see. And if it was a water pipe, wouldn't have been such an issue. But because it is an oil pipe, yeah, it's not something you can sort of change very lightly. We'll try and make a plan for now. This is not highly recommended. It will just be for start, let it run for a couple seconds, and then turn it off until we can get this replaced. Once we have this replaced, we can let it run for, of course, a bit longer. But yeah, essentially we'd want to have all the water and everything running so we can run it up to temp, see if it cools itself down, and get it all sorted.
So before we get it started, we did want to remove the aircon pump. Because a couple of the pipes were damaged, it would be best to remove it, see exactly what was damaged, and then get that replaced. So once the main bracket and pipe were removed, there were just 2 bolts underneath that held it onto the engine itself. So once we got that loosened, it was easy to remove.
Guys, so we are about to give it its first start. I don't know how long this car's been sitting, I don't know what's been happening to it, but everything looks connected, battery is fully charged. I'm gonna hop in. I've got a camera set up here by the exhaust, the camera set up in front of the engine bay, and you'll be with me in the cockpit to see its first start. Fingers crossed it starts first kick, but yeah, let's see.
Now this is officially the first ever start of my crash damaged M135i. I am super excited to get this started and running, like I said before, even if it's just for a couple of seconds, just to make sure the engine and transmission is alright, so we can move on to the rest of the body panels and get everything sorted. But for now, let's check if it starts.
Hasn't started just as yet. It keeps on showing something about an ignition starter fault. So we've quickly opened up the battery here at the back. As you can see, there's power here, power there, and then no power here. So it could either be one of the pyro fuses that's possibly in here or something like that. But yeah, power there, power here, and then nothing's been sent there. So could be that it is stripped or one of the fuses have gone. So we're just going to double check everything quickly and then see if we can get started.
So we started off by removing the battery bracket and the polystyrene holder, just so that we could get more space and access to the positive terminal. Now in this positive terminal there is a small fuse in there that releases when the car is in an accident. This is just so that no power is being sent to the fuel pump and any other electronics that could cause a fire. So what we're trying to do here with some jumper cables is just trying to see if we can bypass that.
Doesn't seem to be turning over just as yet, still throwing all those ignition fault light and warnings up. We've checked all the fuses here, we've checked all the codes in the car as well, tried to clear as much as we can, tried to bypass and sort that fuse out that jumps out in the event of an accident or anything like that. Those fuses have been checked now, so we're just going to check if there's possibly power to the starter, see if maybe there's any wires or anything that have been cut there, check if the power is going to the starter motor, because you can definitely hear the fuel being sent through, so that's a good sign. But yeah, not turning over just as yet.
So here we are, back for round 2 of trying to get this M135i started. I know it wants to start. I feel like we are just so close to something small, either not plugging in right, not getting enough power to it, or something like that. So our last and final resort was to send power directly through to the starter motor to hopefully get the engine turning over and then press the ignition, get the car started. We have tried everything and anything to get this thing working. Nothing's been going our way. But then all of a sudden this happened.
So now we know it officially starts. This makes me even more excited to finish the rebuild and get it back on the road. If you like what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with anyone you think would enjoy this rebuild, and catch me next week as we continue to get this beast back on the road. But for now, take care and I'll see you in the next video. Now we know it officially starts, we can turn our attention to start getting parts for it.
So I got a bit of a secret surprise situation going on, so stay tuned to the end of the video to hear all about that. After stripping the front and getting it started, I've got a good picture of what parts I would need. Not all of the parts did arrive this time around, but I've already started ordering the parts we will need. So let's see what I got. Now, first things first was this bad boy. Of course, in the previous video, we saw that these connectors here were cracked and broken. So we definitely had to get this one replaced. This came as a complete unit. So I do believe this is the transmission oil cooler. Here's the old cracked one, like there. And then he has the nice new one sitting quite sweetly, snugly in those pipe holders there. As the engine one has the fan that we also need to get replaced, so that runs from here down here, and then the fan sits roughly over there. So this we'll have to get a new piping coming down there, sitting here with a housing and an air duct in there, but we'll get that sorted once this has been straightened up forward. Here on these N55 engines, it is a common issue for this seal to start going here. So I've ordered a new seal, I've ordered a new oil filter, I've got new oil for it, I've got new coolant for it with a bottle on the way. And yeah, so we will be removing this, changing the seal that's inside here, change the oil filter, of course change the oil. I've got these as well, so it's the tensioner and this pulley. As you can see here, this pulley did get damaged, so we'll definitely have to change that. So these two come as a complete set with the bolt, so it will be the bolt, the pulley and the tensioner. But this is our first bad boy that allowed us to at least start the car. We did make a bit of a connection here between these two, so it was just a lead pipe and a return pipe. So because it was high pressure, we did have to use the clamps to clamp that together just to start the car and run it for a couple of minutes. We were able to just do a quick little bypass here. If we had to run the car for longer, it would need to cool it down. That's why you've got a small little radiator down here. So just for the time being, we've ran a little bypass, but this is on its way. So let's kick on. So one of the important things was the oil cooler radiator. So this came in a pack with the pipe as well, so that will sort of sit like that leading up to the engine itself. So this sits roughly around there, and then those pipes link up here to go there. So these pipes go up here, and then that sits roughly around there. Now next was the tensioner and the pulley itself. So let's see if we can open this up here, get a good look. Okay, so here's the new tensioner, here's the new bolt, and then the pulley there. New tensioner, new pulley, and our new bolt. So now that here, so here's the tensioner, here's the new pulley, and then the bolt will of course come around something like that, with the aircon pump still sitting there. So now it's time to attack this big box. So let's see what's inside. So straight off the bat, we have got a brand new oil filter, and then we've got a bumper reinforcement bar that sits right at the bottom. So here we have two 5-liter coolant water bottles. It is the blue coolant. I know that works best with these BMW engines, and the oil filter housing. So here's the coolant radiator, nice and fresh, brand new out the box, and here is the aircon radiator as well.
So a nice brand new coolant radiator. So this is for a petrol automatic. So you'll see there's two bigger fittings and two smaller fittings. With the manuals, they are a bit different, so always double check the fittings before you purchase one. So I think one of the big issues why we can't get the car starting is because there is a small little fuse at the back next to the battery, very similar to a pyro fuse. So what it does is when the car is in an accident or anything like that, well, the fuse goes off and then it cuts the power supply to fuel pumps or the fuel lines, everything electrical besides the sort of interior shuts down. Just of course, so the car doesn't light on fire and things like that, which tries to prevent it. So what I'm talking about is the positive terminal here. So we've just popped this one off here. As you can see, this has punctured out here, which is usually meant to be in, but because it's been in an accident, it has popped out, and this prevents any short circuits in the vehicle once it's been in a car accident. So I've ordered in a piece that comes all along with these two as well. So we've opened this one up here, so we'll have to disconnect this one, disconnect that one, pop it in these two clips as well, and it comes in a complete brand new one with this popped inside. So let's get it done. So we removed the arch lining on both sides just so we could expose the front chassis there,
And next we'll be tackling all this double plastic that they had to put over the car, just because of course the car did not come with any keys, so the windows were up to about there. So to not let any rain or anything in, they did have to cover it with this plastic all across the front of the window there. Now a bit of water did seep through, as you can see here on the seat, so we'll definitely have to give this a scrub. We will be doing a full detail on the car, but for now, just to tackle the seat, it has been sun-kissed a bit here, but we can definitely pop a bit of shine on that to get that back to its color. So yeah, let's start tackling this plastic up here and a bit on the door down there. So I started off by just gently rubbing it with a bit of petrol. That does get rid of all the excess glue and makes the plastic on top a lot weaker, just so I can slowly start ripping off the ends and then working my way with the hairdryer later on, so it is a lot lighter and easier to come off. Now you can definitely go ahead and use a heat gun, but I wouldn't recommend that because the heat gun can get really hot, so you don't want to damage the paint or the clear coat by any way. So with the hairdryer you can control the heat, so of course make it a bit hotter when it's not coming off, or make it a bit cooler when you think that it is getting a bit too hot. Now you can see how nicely it's coming off, so I'm heating it up just before I'm pulling it off, so you can see how nicely and smoothly that comes off. Then after that, just rubbing it down with some petrol, and I've got a bit of a scrubber here to just get any of that tough glue that's still sitting in there with the plastic. I'll scrap that down and then of course rub it down with some petrol, and slowly but surely we are starting to get it off. Now the scrubber is plastic, so it won't damage the clear coat or the paint, and I'm not applying too much pressure, just enough to get that glue off, and check how nice it came out. Passenger side all nice and done, so let's get on to the driver side. So very similar to the other side, just putting a bit of petrol on the cloth and then giving a nice rub down. As you can see, it is coming out quite nicely, so I'll definitely recommend, if you have something similar coming up, get yourself a 5-litre bottle of petrol, a couple of cloths, and you should be good to rock and roll. Now this side was definitely a lot worse than the other side. It seemed like they had put two different types of plastics over it, so the one plastic really sunk into the clear coat. So it was the first process of rubbing it down, seeing what glue and plastic I could get off, and then just the rinse and repeat process of scrubbing it down, heating it up and washing it off with a bit of petrol. Eventually I did have to call up for a bit of backup and support, so as I was scrubbing down, my dad was there with the cloth filled with petrol just to rub down all the glue and things like that. So as you can see here, I've gone over, taken majority of the plastic off, and he's come now with the cloth full of petrol just to get the remainder of that off. Now this definitely teaches you a lot of patience and appreciation for the car you're working on, but eventually it will be all worth it in the end.
Now that that is all done, we can finally start moving on to the other parts, but we'll keep that for next week's video. If you like what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that would enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care. So I'm sure you're wondering, Brian, what about cosmetics things? What about the bonnet? What about headlights? What about front bumper? And that's where this comes in. So I've just bought another BMW 1 Series. Brian, what about the bonnet? What about headlights? What about front bumper? So I've just bought another BMW 1 Series. Hey, what's up guys? It's about 4 o'clock in the morning. We are heading off through to Copart to go fetch the next BMW 1 Series. Just had myself a nice little breakfast, easy little coffee, so let's hit the road. So we are at Copart in Sandwich, getting ready to pick up the repair car for the M135. Let's see exactly what we're going to be picking up, if it's going to be worth it. Hopefully it is, but having a look at it now, I think there's a couple of bits and pieces we can take off this one, use on the M135, and then still sell all the extra parts for a bit of space. Let's go.
So this is it guys, the first look at our repair car for the M135, and it is a 2013 BMW 118D M Sport F21 shape. So the reason why I got this car was because it's a lot easier to take all the parts off this car and pop it straight onto the M135 instead of going to buy all the parts individually, as this is an M Sport, so all of the exterior trimmings are exactly the same as the M135, and we'll be using majority of the external parts and bits and pieces from the front.
So these are the headlights we are after. It is the bi-xenon headlights. These are the fenders we are after, and of course the bonnet. I'm not going to worry too much about the bumper. The bumper's still in one piece, could use maybe a bit of a sanding and a bit of a touch up here and there, but besides that the bumper does seem to be in alright condition. The grille, we can always get a new grille, so I'm not too worried about that. We'll just need a badge on top, and the bonnet seems alright. Maybe the fender liner is still good, just this plastic that's sitting here, which I don't think there's an oil radiator for these ones, but maybe, nah, there's not. Thought there would have been. I'm not gonna have a look in the car just as yet, because I don't want to take off this plastic, so we'll keep on this plastic for now until we get home, and then once we get home we can take the plastic off and see exactly what's cooking inside. But yeah, overall this is the replacement. I see the tail light is in good condition, so we'll definitely be replacing this on the M135. But yeah, pretty similar. It does actually have a better diffuser than the M135. Mags, this tire's a bit, but it seems alright. Yeah, plastic also on this side with a bit of glass, so maybe they've broken the glass just to get the airbags out. I see the bumpers popped out this side, but I don't think it's damaged the fender at all, so this fender's still alright. We'll be able to use this fender too. This side doesn't look too bad, still has the spotlight in there. Here's the bi-xenon headlights. This grille is still alright, but I think what we'll do is change both grills together so it looks pretty much the same. I think the bumpers just popped out here a little bit. Doesn't seem too bad, but yeah, we're getting a complete car. Just going to be using the bonnet, fenders, bumper, headlights, crash bar, maybe the aircon radiator, but I know not the normal radiator because it's different piping, this being a manual and a diesel, ours being a petrol and an automatic. Yeah, but besides that, I think we should be all good to rock and roll.
Finally home, so we can have a better look at it. So the car didn't come with any keys. Both windows on other sides have been smashed. All of the airbags have gone off inside the car, so I think it might have nudged one of the sensors in the front and that made all of the airbags go off. But besides that, the car looks pretty good all round.
Alright guys, so this will be the
BMW that we will be taking the complete front from. As you can see, these are the headlights we are needing, so that is brilliant. I know we might need a front grille and a couple of the small ones here at the bottom, but that's not a problem. The main thing is this bonnet. There is a slight little dent, I'm sure you can see here, but we can get that sorted, that's not a problem. But this is exactly what we're after. So we're after this complete front here, all the brackets for the radiators and all of that. It's not the same radiator, but it's not a problem because we will get the radiator for that car. We just need the housings and the fittings. All of these front pieces here is what we need. Fender liners as well, so I'm gonna get on that, start stripping on it. Doesn't look like any water pipes have broken because there's still water in here, and it does seem to be holding water as well. So yeah, this is the 1 series that we can be taking. All of the front part of the bumper seems to have had a bit of a touch here, but we can sand this out. It's anyway gonna go for a wrap, so luckily it's got a bit of life to it, if I could say. But yeah, other than that, let's get to the stripping. So in order to strip the front bumper off, we need to start by removing both wheels on either sides so we can get to the fender liners. Once we remove the fender liners, there are a couple of bolts connecting the fender to the bumper. Once we've disconnected that, then it's just taking a couple of bolts and beadings off the top. Then the bumper should slowly come out, disconnect a couple of electrical and water pipes, then the bumper should come off in one piece. So with the front tires off, I'm just gonna crack on to the top beadings and bolts that sit right in the front just above the kidney grills. So just a word of advice, when removing anything from the car, especially the front bumper, always look for any hidden bolts or brackets that do connect to either the headlight or the kidney grills, the front crash bar as well, because if you do want to remove it and you start pulling it off, you could probably damage it. Moving on to the fender liner now. So there's just a couple of bolts that you need to remove in order to remove the fender liner. Once that's out, we'll have access to the bolts that connect the fender to the front bumper. So the front fender liner came out and it is still in very good condition, so we'll definitely be using that on the M135, and that has now given us access to the bolts that connect the fenders to the front bumper. Now, because these bolts haven't been touched probably since the car was made, it was quite difficult to get them removed, but eventually in the end we did come right. As you can see, the front bumper is nice and loose now. There are still a couple of connections and wires that are still leading up to it. So just as I thought we were ready to remove the bumper, I forgot about the tray that lies right at the bottom. So I've put 1 or 2 bolts on top just so that the bumper can hold into place, and I will have access to get underneath the car, and once underneath I'll be able to loosen all of the bolts and get that removed. With those bolts loosened and the under tray removed, we can start wiggling the bumper slowly but surely off and see what is left. One side disconnected, let's get on to the other side. Once the bumper was on the floor, it is a lot easier to gain access to the water pipes, sensors, electrical plugs, so it was a lot easier not to break any of the fittings. So there we go, finally we have an M Sport front bumper ready to rock and roll for the M135.
So by the looks of it, we will be changing over the subframes from either car because the M135's one just had a slight little knock on it. So it would be better to change it over with the new one just so that everything can be all straight up and lined up perfectly. So I'm sure you guys have seen the front bumper, but this is essentially what I'm after. This complete front piece here with these two cross beams that we anyway gonna have to wrap. This little plastic bit here with this foam piece as well. This bar, oh, we could actually, I think took a bit of a knock, but I'm gonna have to get these plastics. Just hope the subframe hasn't taken too much of a knock, but yeah, all in all, just actually wanted this crash bar. Doesn't look like it's taken any damage, so that's a good start. Alright. Presume this goes here. Yeah, like that. Lekker. Okay, now we can have a look to get this bolt moved here. I don't know what else we need because I want to take off these headlights, but yeah, just having a quick look at it. That side, of course, we've got the fender liner off here, so that's why it's empty, that side's full. But all in all, I'm actually quite happy with it. This we can always just glue back on because this is just like a filler F20 M Sport. This I can get another bar for here in the front, so that's not a problem. And then I just need the plastics inside there, which I need to check if the intercooler ones are not damaged. So let's do that. So that front bar already came with the parts last week, so you can check that out in the previous video. But all we need to get is just the plastic air duct for the intercooler, then we should be all good to rock and roll with the front bumper. So I'm going to continue stripping the front. If you guys like what you've seen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that will enjoy this rebuild / series going on, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace out. 135's subframe had a small little knock on it. Rear lights, possibly the airbags as well. We can do the interior airbag. Moment of truth. Do these headlights work?
So when I bought this M135i, I knew I had to get quite a lot of spares, being the bonnet, front bumper, fenders, crash bar and the headlights. Now the headlights are the biggest one because you need to make sure that the headlights match specifically with your car, otherwise they will not work. So when I got this 1 Series M Sport, they had the headlights I needed, so now it's time to remove them and check if they actually work.
Now a couple of other things have arrived, including this plastic air duct. So this air duct is for the oil coolant radiator, which sits of course with the oil coolant radiator. So that should sit roughly around there. Of course, once this is back straight up, that sits roughly around there with a little bracket on the top. Old one, new one. So something else that also arrived last week, which we'll most probably get to this week, are these bad boys. Now these are the curtain airbags for the interior, so we must probably get onto that this week, which you'll see in next week's video, but at least we've got this so we can completely fit everything in the interior. I think that'll be most probably the last thing that needs to be done in the interior itself. So it's just these curtain airbags, then yeah, the interior should be good. Another little addition to the M135 is the engine start stop button. So this I got in red, which we will be replacing and popping in the front there.
Now that we've seen all the spares that have arrived, let's crack on to stripping the front again, starting with this lower bar, just trying to create a bit of space to remove all the cracked plastics and seeing exactly what we'll need to remove them. Then moving on to the top of the engine, just removing the air intake bottle. This will create a lot more space for us to work with on the top and see exactly what we are in for.
Okay, sweet. So now we can actually see the space in the radiator and the engine bay. I don't think the M135, of course being a bigger engine, comes a lot closer. We don't have this amount of play here, but the fence still seems alright, everything seems alright here. I'm praying this is the same as the M135 radiators, not because this is a diesel manual, mine's a petrol automatic. But still looks alright, because that's the main sort of thing. But yeah, this is what we are currently looking at. So this front crash bar, that's exactly what I wanted, and the headlights, the fenders, the bonnet, and of course the bumper. So everything sits nicely. Let's try see if we can remove these headlights. Maybe we could actually try hook them up to the M135 that's sitting here to try see if they work. Yes, I like that idea.
So to remove this headlight, there are a couple of screws on top that connect the headlight bracket to the front crash bar. Then another 2 screws that connect the headlight bracket to the frame. Once that is undone, it's just to take out the electrical plug, and there we have it, one brand new, well, second-hand headlight. So the first thing I did when I removed the headlight was to go back to the old headlight that we removed off the M135 and check if the codes matched up. Now, if the 2 codes did match up, then we would be all good, but if they didn't, we were gonna be in some serious trouble. Now it seemed majority of the codes did match up, so we should be in the green. Now before I continue stripping the remainder of the front, I wanted to check if these headlights worked. So first things first, let's get the new ones connected to the old plug on the M135, turn it on and see if we get some lights. Hey, I think I see a little light there. Hello. And I see some angel eyes turning on as well. There we go. So these headlights do officially work. I will of course be testing out the brights, testing out the flickers, testing out the normal LED light. But so far so good. Everything is connected and seems to be working. A bit of a gamble with these headlights, but I'm glad it did pay off. As you can see, the headlight is working completely, connected the side, so I'm pretty sure the other side should connect as well, and both of them working.
Now we know the headlights officially works, means that we can continue stripping the front. Next thing on the list is to check the front crash bar and all the air ducts, and then of course the subframe.
So I started off by removing the bolts at the bottom that hold the bumper bar, and then removing this foam piece as well, just so that it wouldn't get damaged and is out the way. Once I loosened the other side, you can see this bar coming out. Now we have bought this bar in the previous video, you can see it arriving, so at least that bar is nice and sorted. Next, moving on to the bumper deformation elements. Now this is what holds the radiator, the front bumper bar and the brake air ducts in place. Onto the fender liner on the passenger side. Now we didn't have to remove this one before because the bumper had come out. If it didn't, then of course we'd have to remove this one first and then remove the bumper, but luckily the bumper had popped out, so we didn't have to remove this, but we're going to be removing it now in order to access the bolts for the front crash bar. With that removed, I could access a lot more of the plastics and the sensors, starting off with the temperature sensor. Once that was out the way, I could remove the two bolts that holds the headlight bracket to also remove this side's headlight. So while I was putting the headlight away, my dad continued stripping the under tray. That will of course give us a lot more access to all the bolts and nuts underneath the car. So just a word of advice, it's always a good idea to keep any bolt, nuts, plastic fittings, anything you take off of your parts car, because of course when you try to repair your damaged car, that won't have majority of your smaller bolts and nuts and plastic fittings. Yes, it will have the bigger, bulkier parts, but not your smaller ones in between, which makes life a lot easier. After a bit of a well-deserved break, we continued stripping the under panel and then onto the plastics on the side. So this under tray did take us quite a bit of time because it does cover majority of the front leading up to the middle of the car, but once we got the final bolts and screws undone, then it did come out like a puzzle. Once that was out of the way, we could start removing more of the plastics and coverings underneath the car. Removing also more of the plastic pipes, which include air pipes and water pipes, just to get them out of the engine bay, so we had a more clear view of all of the bolts and nuts that needed to come out for the front crash bar. And then finally moving on to the crash bar itself, removing the main bolts on the sides so it can come out all in one piece. So it did start getting a bit late and dark, but luckily we did have torches just to try and strip as much as we could have.
But that's all for this week, guys. If you like what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that will enjoy this rebuild, and I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Ducts, and then of course the subframe. So that should sit Guys, we are back. Just had a nice little 2-week holiday just to relax, get a couple of things sorted and recharge, ready to tackle this M135. So back where we left off, I think in today's video what we're going to be doing is the final couple of touch-ups around the exterior of the vehicle, and then mainly the subframe and the suspension in the front. Also with a couple of touch-ups with the interior, just so we can get that all sorted, and then we should be good to rock and roll. So catch me back in the action as I continue to tackle this M135 with my old man.
So as you guys can see here, this tail light had a tiny little crack right at the bottom, just enough to catch your eye on it. So what we're going to do is take this tail light off the 118. Luckily this one's in perfect condition, so let's get to changing them. So I started off by removing this black plastic cap, and that gave me access to the 10mm bolt that was securing the tail light to the car itself. So once I got that loosened up, it was a little bit of a wiggle, and then the tail light did eventually come out. So same situation here, removing the black plastic cap to get to that 10mm bolt. Once I've loosened that, then I'll be able to change the old tail light with the new tail light. So the old one comes off, there you can see it's got that small little crack on the side, and the new one goes on. Of course, just making sure it works just before I put it all back together. So one thing I do also like to do is when changing one side of a taillight is just making sure the other side is fastenedly secured to the car properly, just in case it's been previously fiddled with or something like that, just to make sure everything is 100% with both taillights, so we should be good to go.
Now that we got that tail light all sorted out, we can move on to the interior.
As you guys can see, this interior is in a bit of a state, reason being because both windows were of course halfway, so I think a little bit of water and dust did creep in onto these seats. So before it gets any worse, I just want to give them a nice little scrub, get them nice and cleaned, so we don't have to worry about damaging the seats or anything like that.
So I'm not going to go with anything fancy just for the time being, just to give it a nice little scrub, a bit of dish soap and some water, just to get that dust and grime off the actual seat. And then at a later stage we'll look at giving the seats a nice, good, healthy, deep clean and a good shine. And I think that's actually done the trick. So a nice little scrub with a bit of dish soap and water has really brought these red seats back to life. So they are looking sharp as ever, brand spanking new, which I'm so happy with.
Taillight sorted, interior sorted, let's get onto the subframe.
So while I was busy with the interior and the taillight of the M135, my dad was busy cracking on with the subframe from the 118. So first things first, we had to remove tires from either sides just so we could get to the suspension. Once that's removed, then we look at removing the steering rack, loosen a couple of bolts underneath the car, and then pull this subframe out. Loosen, do the same thing on the M135, get that one out and then pop this one in there, and then we should be good to go. So working on cars that are about 5 years or older, you are going to find that there's going to be a lot more stubborn bolts that are not going to work with you, and that was definitely this case. So we tried a lot of different techniques to try and get it loosened up, but what eventually worked was heating it up with a blowtorch, and then that helped expand the bolt, and then we were finally able to loosen it up. So yeah, if you didn't know, now you know, get yourself a blowtorch and that shit solved everything. Once we got that sorted out, it was removing the tire on the other side and then doing the same with the suspension this side, getting everything loosened up so we can remove the subframe completely from the bottom, that it just drops out and pull to the front. So there we have it, one subframe completely removed from the bottom of the car, ready to go on the M135.
Now that the subframe is off the 118, we can officially start stripping the M135's one and then putting that one back onto the M135.
So similar scenario here, the only thing is we're going to be keeping the shocks, brakes and brake discs, changing all of the lower upper control arms, even the steering rack itself, because it might have been bent in the accident, so I don't want to take a chance, rather replace everything so when we do an wheel alignment, everything is lined up nice and straightly for us and nothing is bent or twisted. So remove everything, drop that lower subframe down, and then pop the new one in, put everything back together, and we should be good as gold. So this intercooler is actually from the 118 DM Sport. So I'll just be using the plastic frames and housings on either side just for the M135, and then actually replacing the intercooler with a new sport induced one, just to give it better performance and better airflow. But for now, let's remove it so we can get access to that subframe. So once that was out of the way, it was just to remove a couple of pipes and screws that would sit in the way to remove the major bolts for the subframe. So once the left hand side had been all loosened up, it was time to crack onto the right hand side. So remove the tire, loosen up all the lower suspension arms, and then that would give us a lot easier access to the subframe itself, and then get that one removed and pop the new one in. So as we start removing the main bolts of the subframe, you'll start to see the engine move a little bit. That's a good sign, meaning that the subframe is slowly getting loosened, ready for it to be removed. Nearly there, just the last couple of final bolts for it to be fully loosened for us to remove it. And there we have it, one damaged subframe out the M135. So roundabout now, my dad's having his post-examination inspection of the damaged subframe, just to of course see if everything will match up to the 118 M Sport, which it does. And yeah, everything came off pretty good, so we're all happy with that, ready to put the new one on. So here's the old subframe. Everything looks good at the back, but when you come around to the side, that is where the damage was. So while we removed the subframe, a couple of pipes did pop up that had been damaged in the accident, so it's actually a good thing which I can replace beforehand and then get them fitted on before we put on the new subframe.
All that's left to do is to remove the subframe from the 118, put that one on the M135 because the M135's one is slightly bent. So we're just going to swap those two over, change the front suspension, and then we can start assembling it back together. Alright guys, so that's everything for today's video. If you like what you've seen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that will enjoy this video, and I'll check you guys next week. Take care. Guys, we finally have the M135 back.
Now this is my crash damaged 2014 BMW M135i, and I know majority of you who have been following the series remember this car as soon as we received it. Had a nice little crash in the front, didn't come with any keys. Majority of the suspension was also twisted in the front and the back, so we've been slowly cracking away at it, trying to get it back to its former glory. So let's jump right back in where we left off.
So the first thing we will be tackling is the radiator pack. So this consists of the intercooler, aircon radiator, coolant radiator and the fan with the module. So the intercooler we got off the M Sport, the aircon radiator is brand new, coolant radiator is brand new and the fan is brand new. So these were all damaged in the accident, so it is quite a simple rebuild. You just need to figure out where everything goes and how it fits all back together. But once it is all fitted nicely, we can then fit it to the car. So lastly, we have the fan with the module. So this just pops in with two locators at the bottom on either side, as you can see here. There are a couple of screws that do hold it into place at the top, but there we have it, one radiator pack ready to rock and roll and go back on the M135. Next, it was onto the subframe. So we have removed the subframe from the M Sport to put on the M135. The M135's subframe had been damaged in the accident. So in order for us to get the car moving nice and straight, we had to then change the subframes over so that the suspension could be all nice and straight, lined up nicely so we could get it rolling.
So in the previous video, we were sorting out the final couple of bits of the subframe. So subframe was put back on, all suspension was put on as well. So the car was actually movable. Then we took it down to the guys where they sorted out the front frame for us. So I'm sure you'll see in this video here, the front frame is looking nice and clean. Everything lines up straight up. Everything lines up properly with the front crash bar. That's why the crash bar was just put on sort of roughly just so it could see if it lined up. Everything lined up good, so we officially have the M135 back with us.
Now next we will be doing some mechanical work. So I'll be changing the tensioner and the pulley over. So here I am removing the old tensioner and just putting the new tensioner on. I'll just be hand tightening both of these, so as soon as we get the aircon pump back inside, we can tighten everything up and then put the bolt on as well. So it's just to remove the old ones. As you can see here, the pulley is badly damaged in the accident, so a new pulley is required. Get it on, get it tightened, and then as soon as we have that aircon pump, we can put it back together.
So another thing that I've changed is I've put the new tensioner on with the new pulley. So then the aircon radiator, the aircon pump sits here. Then the pulley can go through. We've changed the gasket that sits in here, so we've had to loosen this up. So this is still a bit loose in there, so that's where the new oil pipe will go. But then yeah, just a couple of sensors here, brackets, which I'm not sure where everything goes. New subframe has been put in, so that looks good. And then a couple of pipes from the back there come in. But then yeah, we should be all good to rock and roll. So I want to talk to you guys about today's sponsor. They are a company called B&D Auto Body Spares.
Now they provide their clients with quality and affordable spare parts while building long-term relationships and maintaining excellent customer service. They've got everything from bumpers, bonnets, headlights, tires, doors, you name it, they've got it. They literally have spares for days, but so check them out, link is in the description.
So let's quickly talk about bodywork. Of course, I'm going to be changing the bonnet over with that one. This wing, I believe this wing is still alright. Might need a little bit of work here, but I'll get the guys to sort this wing out. Reason being is because majority of the brackets are still here and in place. The thing is with this wing, we can't do nothing much about it because there is a massive little crack here. It has been dented all across here, and you can see this bracket here. Oh, yeah, isn't the greatest. So I'll be replacing. You can also see it's actually come out a little bit here to where the car sits. and I think that's mainly because of the bonnet. So I'll be changing this wing and this bonnet over with this one, but then keeping this wing on here, just doing a bit of a touch up here so they can sort that out, and then of course spraying it all the same color. With the bonnet, we're going to have to change it from the hinges on other side. So luckily these ones, it's just 2 bolts there. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. So it's 1 and then 2, and then of course take these hydraulic pipes off, pop that out, put a new bonnet, because yeah. So this will be the bonnet that we take for the M135, and this is the other side wing that we're going to be taking as well. So as you can see here, all the brackets are nicely into place, that align nicely there. So it's still nice and clean, still has the M badge emblem on the side. I'm sure you guys can see, let me just try to see, there's a little dent here so that they'll be able to sort out. But if I wanted to, I could have used both wings, but I think we just need that one primarily. So yeah, we'll be taking off this wing here, take out all of this bits, so they'll have to respray, take out all of this, all of that, respray the rest, and then pop this bonnet. But yeah, this is the bonnet that we're going to be using on the M135.
So just some of the parts that have started to arrive. So we do have the old ones there, the new ones that have arrived as well, and another one is one of the brackets for the oil cooler radiator. So we can get this from BMW, but it does take a bit of time. So I found one that was a bit cheaper and quicker to get off of eBay. So that will sit roughly about there, and then the oil cooler radiator will just pop on there with the lines going across.
Another thing we need to get is one of these. So this will sit on the front bumper and send air through to the brakes. So definitely need to get one of these, because yeah, that's not repairable. So that has been ordered. So in here I've got majority of the fender liners or wing liners that are up in here. We did have to take out the main piece for the prop shafts, just so that we could move the car without damaging the gearbox. And then I've got a couple of air pipes here that I might need to replace, because I know on the N55 engines these ones do crack quite a bit. So this sits from the intake manifold and it has cracked there, I think when my dad was trying to take it off. So it does come in a 2-piece set as shown below. So this is like a sort of aftermarket kit that comes with a bit more of a strengthened metal, if you could say, or carbon fiber, where from standard this comes as plastic from BMW themselves. So that is something we'll definitely have to change.
So this is the changeover of the gasket next to the oil filter. So it is known to have a common leak on these engines. So once we loosened up a couple of bolts, it did reveal where the gasket sits. So a quick changeover of the gasket, give it a clean up, and then we popped it right back in.
So yeah, we've got our oil cooler radiator, the little air duct that fits in there, and then the bracket for the top. We've also got a bracket for the bottom, but we won't be needing that for now. So this oil cooler radiator sits something like that. Then this is a small little knob there at the top that fits, if you can see, slides in there. So then that connects together, and this should sit on top of that inside there. So it comes complete nicely like that, and then that should sit somewhere roughly around there, so that the pipes will then go from here all the way through to there, which are these pipes here, but we've got them brand new. So the new pipes will then come here, and then that sits roughly on there. So guys, I've just quickly built this up here. So this is the crash bar. We're going to be either repainting this or wrapping that, so we can leave it like this for now. We do have an air duct that goes in here, and then this is where the oil cooler radiator will sit. So then that pops in here. How did I check? Oh, if you can see under there, there's two little slits, and on the top here, there's two little slits. So then that sits in like there, bolts into the side here. Let me try to get a better view. That sits in there, and then there's a bolt that sits in there. Then this holds the oil cooler radiator like that, and then that's how it looks. Then of course the radiator and all of that comes underneath here, so that's how it looks so far. So we're getting wrapping that, sorting out the front crash bar. At least we've got these sorted as well, so everything like that will then just sit up top of that. Those are nice and straight now, so we should be good to go. We've changed the gasket in here. We just need to run the car to temperature, so then we can change the oil inside of it. Next thing to do is the aircon pump, and then we can put the bolt on. So then the bolt will sit around like that, and then the car should be able to start and at least charge itself. And then yeah, pop the oil radiator, coolant radiator, and all of that together here. Fill it up with temperature. Get these pipes all nicely connected, back sorted. Then we should be all good to go. I'm just sitting. It's not good. Today I should actually take this off. These pipes, I don't want them to get damaged.
So next is to unpackage something that I've been putting off for quite a while now. Reason being is because it's quite an intricate job with being connection to the interior of the car. So whoever packaged this parcel, flip and packaged them amazingly, because it took me literally forever just to unbox it. But yes, this is the curtain airbags for the M135. It's not a massive job, but it is very intricate because there's a lot of pop rivets that need drilling out and putting back in, a lot of screws, and you're also dealing with a lot of electrical plugs, which if you forget to plug them in, you're going to have to take everything out and start from scratch. So at least for now, I know that I've got both sides of the curtain airbags that we can then eventually pop them inside.
All we gotta do is pull this back. All of these ones clip along here and won't damage too bad. But get this one out and then put the new one underneath, and then just push this back in there. Puts all the way to the back there, all the way to the front here. I'll push it underneath for now. So next thing I want to do on the M135 is strip the bonnet, the two wings, and get the front bumper down to the workshop so the guys can start prepping it for paint. The front bumper needs a bit of work on it as well, so I'll get them to sort that out. And on the new bonnet, there is a slight little dent in the middle of that. So I'll get them to sort that out, get that ready for paint. So once that is so while that is being done, we can sort out the rest of the mechanical works that need to be sorted out on this car. So put the radiators back, coolants back, put the coolant radiator, oil radiator, put everything back essentially. So then once the bits have been painted and the car is running up to temperature and mechanically sound, I will then put the bits, whip them back on the car, and then we can take it out for our first drive. So if you guys have liked what you've seen, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with anyone that you think that will enjoy this rebuild, and I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Wings, bumper and bonnet are all painted up. Get that, whip that back on the car, and I'm talking so much shit.
This one is to be a half harmonic fitted inside the underturbo. It's not here.
Hey, what's up guys? We are back with another video. I'm hoping in today's video we can get as far as we possibly can on the M135. So that means putting both wings back on, oil pipes, coolant pipes, rad pack back on. There's a whole couple of things that need to still go on the bumper. So stay tuned and let's go. So diving in straight into the action, I am busy tightening up the tensioners and the pulleys just so that the bolt can be all nice and tightened when we do eventually get to pull the car. Next thing, we had to jump onto the oil cooler radiator pipes. So this was damaged in the accident, and we did run a bit of a bypass onto them just because we needed to see if the engine was running all good and that the oil was going back and forth. So now that we've got the new ones in, I'm just going to be changing over the O-rings. We did put new O-rings on, but this is very, very important. Otherwise, oil will be leaking from the engine. So don't forget to put your O-rings on before you connect the pipes. Alright, so now that we've done the top end of the pipe, it is to get to the other end of the pipe, and I cannot stress again these bloody O-rings. Make sure you get them onto the ends before fitting anything on. So once that is all nice and fitted on, we can finally get to this oil cooler radiator. Now that the pipes are on, we can finally get the plastic cover. So it is like a bit of a duct intake cover that does allow the air to flow from the bumpers straight into the oil cooler radiator. And I just want to get everything bolted onto it. So I'm going to bring the front crash bar beams onto it. They have been aligned when we did get the chassis straightened up. So here I am just busy tightening them up so I can connect the oil cooler radiator to them. Now, just as I wanted to put the lower bumper reinforcements on, my old man did point out that the front crash bar beams were incorrect and I had swapped them around. So here I am busy undoing what I had previously done so we can just get them on the right side and then get those lower bumper reinforcements on. So once the correct parts were in the correct position, I turned my focus onto the intake pipes. So this goes from the intake manifold into the intercooler. So they're very commonly known that they do have faults on the M135s because they do come from factory in plastic. So I've changed ours over to the aluminium one. Just gives a bit of a stronger hold on those intake pipes so that it doesn't crack in the future. It is finally time to get this old crusty dented bonnet off. So yeah, you can see us dismantling the bonnet from the hinges. Luckily the hinges didn't take too much of a knock, but we will be changing them anyway. So once we get the bonnet off, that does give us more space in and around the engine to put things back, like the coolant bottle, a couple of the pipes that sit further back, and then of course making our way to the front, getting all those coolant pipes, oil pipes, everything that needs to go in and around the engine. It just opens up everything a lot more, just so that we can get everything in place. Now this is one of the most stressful moments in the rebuild. It had seemed that one of the retaining half moon clips had been swallowed into the turbo, which could then have damaged the turbo and the engine, but luckily this was not the case. It was then sitting in the other 118 M Sport, so it was just to get that on and get it fitted. Finally, all the oil pipes, coolant pipes, everything's back together. So now it's time to put the rad pack on. Now let's get this rad pack
put all together and back onto the M135. So I'm just going to be securing the sides of the rad pack, which consume of the AC condenser, the intercooler right at the bottom, and the coolant radiator. This of course is the rad pack. We'll get that onto the car fitted with all the pipes, just to make sure that water can run freely and that it's also cooling the water down. So this plays a very big role in cooling your engine down, so we need to make sure that everything clips in and holds tightly, otherwise there will be coolant all over the place, and the engine could potentially overheat and sort of blow itself up. So in order for us not to get to that stage, we need to take our time and just make sure that everything is in the correct position, which did take a bit of time because of course I've never done this before, so it was a bit of a trial and error to try and see exactly where all these pipes fitted. So sit back, relax, and enjoy us struggling to get this rad pack on. So eventually we figured out that fitting on the air intake pipes from the intercooler straight to the turbo on the rad pack before putting the rad pack on was the best solution. Because the engine is so big, the engine bay doesn't necessarily have a lot of space to maneuver your hands in and around the pipes. So once we did that, everything fit together like a glove. Once that was completed, it was finally time to put on the complete front panel. So this consists of all the air ducts, a couple of the foam bits, and the front crash bar, all the metal bits as well where everything else attaches to, including the brackets for the headlights. So now we are going to start bolting everything together, start putting the air intake ducts in, and try bolt it all up. So these are just a couple of photos that I took while we were in the process of putting everything back together. I just want to give a big shout out to my guys who did get the front bumper painted nicely, and of course just trying to make sure everything looks the part, which it looks spectacular. Next thing to do is to get both wings back on aligned properly, and then we can test fit the front bumper onto the car, followed by all the grills, so building up the complete front bumper. Let's go. Now first things first, to get the wings off we need to take the 10mm bolts that run all along the side of the car, and then there are a couple right at the bottom with a couple of plastic clips that, if you're not very careful with it, can break because they do get quite brittle. But if you just take your time, do it slowly, take a screwdriver flat, and that should necessarily sort it out. As soon as you've taken all the bolts off, then it is time to just fiddle around a little bit with those clips, and then that's one wing off. So here is our new freshly painted right front wing. As you can see here, everything is looking good, not a single dent to it, and the color has been matched perfectly. So just as we took it off, we'll put it back on exactly the same way, starting at the bottom, getting it first into those plastic clips, and then working our way around the car to then bolt everything up again. Like I said, I'm not necessarily too stressed about fitment at the moment. I just really want to get this car back on the road. Once that was all into place and bolted on nicely, next was to tackle the bonnet hinges. So like I said, it wasn't necessarily too bad, but I'd always suggest if any vehicle has had a front ender, definitely change the bonnet hinges, because if they just move ever so slightly, it can affect the alignment of the bonnet. So yeah, we've taken off the bonnet, removing the hinges, and they'll go back exactly how they've come off.
Now that we know the front bumper sits nice to the wings, I'm not really too worried at the moment about alignment. I just want to get this car done and dusted as soon as possible. I can deal with alignment a bit later. I'll whip off the bumper quickly and let's get those headlights on.
Now the infamous M135's headlights. Now because we didn't get a chance to remove them off the M135, of course because of the accident, it was a bit of a mission trying to get them back on together again. These headlights do have a couple of tabs at the top and at the bottom as well, so luckily enough the bumper wasn't on, so it did give us enough space to then find out where all the tabs are and just trying to get them bolted down and also aligned to the wings, because if they don't align to the wings, they won't align to the bumper. If they don't align to the bumper, they won't align to the bonnet. So it was just a bit of a fiddle game getting them tucked in nicely and then bolted on. And finally, the M135's front bumper. Yes, it is looking nice and shiny, but everything still needs to be rebuilt and go back into it. From your parking sensors to your washer jets, kidney grills, lower grills, you name it, everything needs to go back on. So I started off with the washer jets. Yes, the caps were painted as well with the bumper as well, so everything matches up nicely, and then I'd move on to getting the sensors in, getting the kidney grills in, lower grills, side grills, getting essentially everything built up on this bumper so it can just then fit on straight onto the car and we should be good to go. Now I've opted in for these blacked out kidney grills. I just think they look so much better on the car, especially being right in the front makes it look a lot more meaner. So getting them fitted in wasn't too bad. There are just a couple of plastic clips that it does attach to the front bumper, and then we moved on to the parking sensors, just making sure they've got their rubbers right in the front so that the parking sensor does clip in nicely. Moving on to the lower side grills. These are the ones we actually waited for so long from BMW. Apparently they just couldn't find them, but eventually once they had arrived we could get them onto the bumper, and then it's last but not least the lower grille.
So guys, it starts and it holds coolant, holds oil, so I am super amped for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you've seen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with anyone you think that will like these kind of videos. Stay tuned for the next video so we can finally finish this rebuild off, and then I've got a surprise for you guys later. Take it easy.
So this was my crash damaged BMW M135 straight out of Copart. Once we received the vehicle, trailered it back home and assessed the damage. So complete front end was non-existent. Everything was damaged from the rims, radiators. We even had a bit of suspension damage as well. Front crash bar, all of the plastic trims, headlights, you name it. If it was in the front, it was damaged or non-existent. So first things first, we needed to grab a key so we could get in and out the vehicle, and then started stripping away at all the bits and pieces that were damaged.
So once we got all of that off, it was time to start cleaning the M135. So this glue needed to come off, and a bit of water had gotten into the passenger seat, so got that cleaned as well. And then we bought a second BMW 1 Series M Sport. So this was going to be our donor car, getting all of the parts necessary of this one onto the M135 as well, which just made a lot of sense. This had everything we needed, so we got all of this off, stripped the car to the bone, and popped that on the M135. Now, there were quite a couple of mechanical and electrical parts that we couldn't get off the donor car, so we had to go out and buy them brand new, get them fitted. Tried it for its first start, so it did start officially. Very happy with that. So now it was just time to piece everything back together, get some coolant in the car, and then take it out for its first drive. So this is where we're currently at, this is where we're sitting, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Alright, so the plan of action for today is to get the M135 wrapped up, done and dusted, ready to hit the road. So next we're going to be tackling the curtain airbags, and then just making sure everything else is tightened up on the front end, i.e. the front bump, all the grills, everything like that. So stay tuned and let's go.
Now the headlights were quite a nice fit, especially into the wings, so we got those fitted on, then a couple of foam pieces and the grills for the radiators, so everything's coming together quite nicely.
So first things first, let's get that front bumper back on the M135.
Now, because I was so excited in the moment to get this bumper straight on the M135, I forgot to actually record the whole scene, but as you can see here, we are roughly adjusting it, but it is looking good so far.
Now that the bumper is nicely fitted onto the M135, I just want to get those curtain airbags in, so stay tuned and let's get that done. So currently the curtain airbags have been tucked back in nicely here, but we need to get this roof lining down, get the curtain airbags drilled out. I do believe they are pop rivets, so we'll need to get them drilled out, get the old ones out, get the new ones in, pop rivet them in, and then plug them in. That should then get rid of the passenger warning light. I do believe it could also be due to the seat belt buckle, but I'm hoping it's just the curtain airbags. If not, we'll have to get these ones changed too, but they do still work, and the seat belt is still at least loosened up, so it hasn't tensioned up. So let's get these curtain airbags sorted out.
Now, because both curtain airbags decided to deploy, we thought it would be best to get the entire roof lining off. Now this meant stripping everything from your sun visors, all the handles, interior lighting both front and middle, rear boot, trims, you name it, everything that was connected essentially to the roof lining had to come off. So once we had them all stripped out and everything nice and loose, we could finally see the deployed curtain airbags. Now, majority of the airbag itself was actually just clip-ons, but right at the gas canister where it does explode from, that did have pop rivets. So we first had to drill out the old pop rivets, unclip everything, clip the new one in, and then actually pop rivet the actual gas canister part where there is an electrical little connector in, to then tell the car that the airbag hasn't deployed and it is a new one, does register to the car. So once we had that all in place, it was just time to clip it back in and put everything back together. Now, once both curtain airbags were back into place, it was time to put the roof lining and all the sun visor, all the handle trims, you name it, from the interior lighting to the boot trims as well, plastic trims, rubber trims, everything back together. Now this is a very tedious process, especially with the electrical items, because if you do forget to plug one of them in, you will have to then be forced to take everything
back out, strip everything again, and connect it properly. So as you can see, we started when it was daylight. Now it's night because there were a couple of electrical plugs we forgot to plug in. So word of advice, just make sure and double check that you plug everything in, otherwise you will be doing the job twice or 3 times over. So everything decided to fit nice and tug all together. So I'm very happy with how this came out. Of course, the roof lining just needs a bit of a wipe down, but all the trims, all the plastic trims, rubber trims are now in place, looking nice and neat.
Last but not least, is to change over that old bonnet onto the new one. The bonnet is also painted with the bumper and the wings, so everything does match in terms of color wise. So we'll get the old bonnet removed. I've just been keeping it on there just to cover everything at the moment until we got the bonnet back. So we've finally got the bonnet back, so we'll change the bonnet over, get everything aligned nicely, and then take it for its first drive.
Now it is finally time for us to get rid of this old damaged front bonnet and replace it with the newly fresh painted donor car bonnet. Of course, it's been stripped to bits so we could slap on that M135 paint on. So to put it on the car, it was just a couple of 13mm bolts on either side, and then we had to start the process of either aligning it to both wings and the front bumper and then start putting everything back on it. Now, of course, the alignment won't be perfect at first time, so this is just the process of trying to align it all together. But before we even start on that, we are going to put the washer fluid pipe back in, so these two go to the little sprayers, and then of course the heat shield, just to keep the temperature nice and cool in the engine. Get that slapped onto the bonnet with a couple of plastic clips. Then next, it was just onto a couple of plastic trims that covered the fuse box and the positive terminal on the either sides of the M135 engine bay. So once we got these clipped in nicely, we could move then next onto the main rubber that sits onto the top bumper. Once that was all completed, it was just time to align the front bumper to the bonnet a little bit. I wasn't necessarily too stressed about alignment. I just wanted to get this bonnet on, get this car on the road and take it out for its first drive. So you can see the gaps aren't necessarily perfect. Of course, nothing's touching. That was my main priority, just so that I didn't chip away any paint. But other than that, I was really happy how the color came out. Everything is matching nice and clean. The front end is looking super clean. So I am really happy with how this came out. And yeah, just ready to whip on that number plate and take it out for its first drive. Now, last but not least, we had to finish everything off with putting on the engine cover that goes, of course, directly on top of the engine, covers everything on top, and it is looking nice and sweet.
Now that everything is put back together on the front end, the front bumpers on, grills are all in place, time to put on that final BMW badge. Alright guys, so now everything is finally fitted to the M135. I am super excited to get this thing on the road, take it out for its first drive. There are still a couple of little things that we need to sort out, but that's not a problem as long as it's on all fours and if I put my foot down, the car goes. So let's take it out for its first drive. guys, so check this M135 out. It is looking amazing. Of course, there's a couple of bits that we still need to adjust, i.e. the wings and all of that. But looking at this car as a whole, I'm so excited to show you guys what it finally looks like.
Now this beast looks amazing. So I've just put a couple of clips together so you guys can hear it roar. And just like that, the M135 is finally done and dusted, and I couldn't be happier with how it has turned out. I just wanted to take a moment to say a massive thank you to my dad. His help and knowledge through this whole process has been unbelievable. He's been there every step of the way, and I honestly couldn't have done this without him. A huge thank you as well to my amazing wife. She's put up with endless car talk, time spent in the garage, and has supported me through it all, so I appreciate you so much. And of course, to my family and friends, thank you for every message, every bit of support. It has really made this journey even more special. But for now, it's time to enjoy the car and bring you guys a load more content. So if you've made it this far, drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. More to come, and I'll see you in the next one.
Now that the M135 is officially done and dusted, running nicely, of course I'll be using it as a daily just to make sure everything is all sweet as a nut. We are going to the Nürburgring. It's a boss. Well, that's not good. Okay, I wanted to already make the car into another video.